Hi, welcome to Transformative Truths, quotes for learning, growing, and becoming. I'm Wally Goddard.
And I'm Sarah Waldron Brinton.
And we're glad you're here today. I want to reference a book by Jefferson Singer. He's a psychologist who wrote about memory and the vital role of memories and the way we select, edit, organize our memories, even choose memories. If we filed every experience from our lives, we would have cabinets that stretch for football fields and folders that could fill several stadiums. On the other hand, if we discarded experience after experience and never paused to put some of them in their proper drawer and file, we would have little sense of continuity or meaning in our lives. Effective personal memory, then, is a selection process that requires the ability to forget as well as remember personal events from your life.
Don't all of us kind of look at our lives as a storyline?
Oh, yeah.
Maybe we don't all do that. I do that. Do you do that?
I think it's nearly universal, yes.
I don't know why this last line made me chuckle because it says, requires the ability to forget as well as remember. And I thought of my grandma, Judy, who could forget and remember things, and we never knew which one was the truth. Oh, it was so fun to hear her tell stories.
And maybe even invent.
Oh, yes. I think her invented stories were some of my favorite. Isn't it interesting how we oftentimes use the past to create meaning for the present?
Yes. Yes. I think that's a continuing process for all of us.
Yeah. He continues with saying this, your life story setting is not so much a physical setting, but more a state of mind that you repeatedly bring to your story. By adolescence, your childhood experiences have given you an overall sense of how things go in the world. If life has gone relatively smoothly up to that point and you have felt supported in your development, you are likely to see the world in optimistic terms. People are generally good. Things usually work out. No problem is insurmountable. On the other hand, if you have already seen your share of disappointment, cruelty, and failure, you may see tragedy or rejection lurking around every corner. You may be slow to trust people and to let them trust you. Where others see hope, you may see one more instance of injustice. Your setting, then, is the general worldview that you bring to your story. Its palette, bright or dark, gives the overall hue to the events and the people that fill in your story.
Wow. That's deep, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, one of the things that Jefferson Singer recommends is that each of us identify the 5 stories we would share with a new acquaintance with whom we want to become better acquainted and really start to know each other. What are the 5 stories you would tell? I love that idea. And he even goes a step farther and says, those 5 stories really define who you are. You know, whether you are inventive or sad or progressive or whatever it is, whatever defines you, those stories tell us that, well, they speak volumes about who we are, what we stand for.
You know, yesterday I went to lunch with a group of ladies. We're all in this little club together. And one of them, who was a former teacher, made us this little get-to-know-you thing that looked just like it came from an elementary school. Tell us about your name. Draw a picture of something that happened to you before you turned 20.
Oh.
And then tell us about a book that had an impact on your life. But we had so much fun. And I thought, what's an interesting story that happened to me before I was 20? And I told a story of when I fell in a beaver dam and got hosed off by a farmer in front of a whole scout troop. I was so embarrassed. I was probably 10. And I don't know what that says about me, but a lot of us chose to share these sort of really funny, unique things. Another gal was a car hop as a young girl. That was her first job, and one of the first people who came up to order a meal came riding up on a bull. Stop. You just look at that person and you think no one else has ever done that except you delivered a sandwich to a cowboy on a bull.
There isn't really a place to attach a tray when they come up on a bull.
I wondered where she put that tray, on the saddle. You probably don't even have a saddle for a bull.
Yeah, probably not.
Yeah.
I never do. She's just
every time you've ridden a bull. And so, I don't know, sometimes it feels very human, very connective to share these fun, sort of silly things that have happened to us. But also, I wonder how many of us would choose to share something more vulnerable.
Yes. And maybe also something that touches our heart. I mean, like the book that changed your life.
Yeah.
You think about that and you say, how did it change you? What difference did it make? Or when did you wrestle with who you really are? And that's, again, some vulnerability. What conclusion did you draw? What caused you to decide one way or another? Wow, there's so many things. I, of course, like the question, when have you felt the Spirit most clearly, most strongly, most transformatively? Because the Spirit, wow, the Spirit's bringing heavenly messages. When have we felt it and what did it say?
Something I like to think about is the first time I said a prayer and said, "Thy will be done." What would you have me do?
Yeah.
And that was kind of scary and kind of amazing because of the events that followed. And I think many of us probably have stories where we think, okay, nothing's happening, so let's have some faith. And something that you often talk about, Wally, is keeping a record.
Yes.
And I wonder what role that might play here in creating the narrative of our life and what memories we choose to define ourselves with.
Oh, boy. Yeah, and of course, as you know, Sarah, one of the things I do at the end of every day is not only write down an outline of what we did during the day, but then make a separate record of those places where I felt like God showed up, where there was joy, there was meaning, there was growth, there was peace, there was love, all those vital things that make life so rich and growth so prominent. So I make that record, and then I go back to that later in the week and I say, what themes am I seeing? Is there a message that God is trying to send me? And most importantly, am I getting the message? Am I getting the message? Am I applying it in my life?
Something else that I like that you've shared before with me is the little calendar view that you might do of a day. Can you explain that, where you just, on maybe a calendar grid of the month?
Yeah. So on the month at a glance calendar is where I make that first record, just the outline of the day. And so I could go back to the last 50 plus years and tell you what I did every day of my life. And that by itself may not seem very interesting, but so often it helps me see a context. We got the opportunity to do this or that, or go someplace, or wow. And then I extract from that, what are the places where heaven reached out and said, hey, Wally, pay attention here. There's something especially important that you just thought or felt or saw or heard. That's, I guess, one way I think of the Holy Ghost is kind of like a highlighter. God's got a highlighter in his hand, the Holy Spirit, and he highlights a thought, a feeling, a passage. And he's saying, this is important. You pay attention to these and guide your life by them, and it will make a difference.
It's interesting because he highlights things that are really exciting, really joyful, and maybe he highlights things that are difficult too.
Yes. My experience is that he takes the difficult and gives us meaning, and he allows us to extract a positive lesson from it. He doesn't leave us in the darkness saying, wow, what am I going to do with this? He rather says, okay, here's this dark experience. Let me show you how I can and will transform it to something glorious, sweet, beautiful, if you allow me to. You allow me to touch it, and I will change it.
I think our friend Jefferson Singer is telling us that, okay, you're going to have all these different experiences in life, and you get to choose how those memories stack up. And combined with a little bit of wisdom from Wally, boy, if we allow the Spirit to touch each one of those memories, we might really end up liking our story.
We're the editors for our own lives, aren't we?
Yeah.
Life just delivers this mass of experiences, and then we choose the ones that are most meaningful, and those that we don't know what to do with, we let God touch them and transform them. And we end up with this brilliant, glow-in-the-dark narrative that is just radiant.
So what should we do with that this week, Wally?
Wow, Sarah, going to get practical on me, huh?
Well, after talking with you, I feel compelled to go to the local print shop where they have a free month at a glance calendar and start my own. I can't tell you everything I did for the past week, and you could tell me everything you did for the past 50 years. So
that's right.
I think that would be really a neat thing. And it might say I changed a diaper, and then I changed another diaper, and then I put a Band-Aid on a knee. And that's a pretty precious phase of life that's not going to last very long, isn't it?
Yeah. Just a side note, Sarah, Nancy used to keep a little journal for our children, and knowing that when they were very young, couldn't make their own record, she would write, today I did such and such.
Oh, that's
and
nice.
I had fun with, and then she's presented those to our children as they become parents. And they get to see themselves as peers to their own children. It's just really sweet. But imagine that you are keeping your record and you start to see how all this adds up to something. I mean, one of my favorite words on the planet is meaning.
Mm-hmm.
And we find meaning by not just listing the events, but saying, how do they come together to make a whole that is meaningful? How do I extract meaning from this collection of experiences? And as you do that, as you have this list of experiences and you start extracting meaning, I think you'll see the hand of God.
I think you will. And maybe our challenge is find a way to keep a record that makes sense for you.
Yes.
And for your family.
Yes.
Try it and stick to it. And as a missionary, I would collect different pieces of ephemera, a leaf, a receipt, a candy wrapper, and it would immediately transport me to all the happenings of that day.
Oh, yeah.
I have another journal that I'm starting with my oldest child, with my son, that's a parent and me journal.
Oh,
now that he's big enough to read and write, we can talk to each other in a journal. And I think that will be a really cool thing for him to take with him.
My goodness, if you did nothing more than list the subjects that he wants to talk about, he has such an expansive mind.
Yes, he does. He did wake us up this morning asking if we wanted to know what happens to things that travel at the speed of light. So we might have a real interesting time with that journal.
Oh, my goodness.
We just hope that something in this episode has spoken to you and that we can look back on our lives with a vision of purpose and meaning, and that, like you said, the parts that maybe don't make sense, we'll hand over to God and let Him help us as we edit our stories. Each one is beautiful and unique and important.
Yes. Honor that story, honor life by recording the story in your mind, in your heart, and probably on a piece of paper too.
Thanks, Wally.
Yeah. Thank you, Sarah. Hope you'll join us again soon. We hope that some of the quotes we share are meaningful to you and something maybe you'd like to add to your personal collection. If so, go to drwally.com and look under Transformative Truths podcast, and all the quotes as we broadcast them will be available to you to cut and paste into your collection.